Hello and welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast. Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. That didn't work at all. I'm sorry. I apologize to Rotary District 5810. My name is Greg Tepper. My co-host this evening, a very special guest for you guys. It's my normal co-host. It's the man they call Josey, Andrew Utz.
Well, hello, Greg.
You are a special guest guest co-host because you're special and you're a guest, kind of.
Yeah, that's
like you're a guest somewhere. Like you've been a guest before.
That's true.
Like you've visited other people's house, and you are my co-host.
I'm a guest. Yeah, I'm a guest in my house. I guess. I don't.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
don't know
a
if that
stretch.
works.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll just edit
it's okay.
that out.
This is the RYLACast. Before we get going, so let me because last time we kind of buried this at the end, but we should probably talk about North Texas Giving Day. Let's do this at the top because then Dana won't yell at me. I didn't mean that. What I mean is because then we can do right by Camp RYLA. Also, the other part too.
Yes.
So North Texas Giving Day is coming up on September 22nd. And that is a day in which, a variety of charities and nonprofit organizations across North Texas it's a big day for people to donate to their favorite charity and for favorite organization. I don't know what your scene is like, but if you're looking for an organization to donate to, may I offer you RYLA 5810? That feels like a good place to donate, doesn't it?
It does. And if I can tack onto that. So
by all means, I don't have the copy points.
Oh, good. When I hear like donate and big fundraiser, like I get nervous, right? Because it feels like, okay, this is an entire day dedicated to giving to all these great nonprofit organizations, and it's intimidating. But I do want to stress that like $5-10 donations, those are absolutely welcome. So I just wanted to put that out there that if you are interested in giving and are in a place where you can give, we would love to be, or RYLA 5810 Foundation would love to be that recipient.
So let me tell you this. On Sunday, my eldest son, Hank, and I got up and got in the car and we drove to the donut store, got some donuts. Okay. Big dad energy on a Sunday.
Oh yeah.
And we also went and got Mom. We got her a pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks.
Okay. Pumpkin spice latte season.
Because my wife is awesome. So anyway, I'm trying to stay out of trouble here. She's not going to listen to this podcast.
Yes.
But she's she enjoys the finer things, is what I'm saying. So we go and we get her the pumpkin spice latte. I was shocked at how much the pumpkin spice latte cost. Like, genuinely shocked. All I'm saying is, if you're a pumpkin spice latte fan and you want to not have one pumpkin spice latte and instead offer that money to RYLA, I think it would go farther than a PSL.
Ooh, PSL.
Is that a good sales pitch? Is that a good way is that a good way to get people to donate?
You not only have me interested in donating to RYLA 5810, you also have me interested in researching the price of a PSL.
I will tell you, it's more than $5.
That is eye-opening and shocking.
At least the one that I got. Now, maybe they just maybe it came with $3 stapled to the bottom and I didn't see it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do that at Starbucks. Anyway, please donate to RYLA 5810 on North Texas Giving Day coming up here on September 22nd. Also, I know I mentioned this last time, but if you are a shopper on Amazon, Jeffrey Bezos' company, if you, instead of going to www.amazon.com, if you go to smile.amazon.com, they will automatically donate a percentage of the money to RYLA. I do that, and I'm I can't tell you how lazy I am. You know what I mean? But I can type in smile.amazon.com and send and give like 45 cents of the money I'm spending on a nose hair trimmer to RYLA. So you can do that
You
too.
are hitting all the copy points, Craig.
Thank you.
And it's not even your money. The cost of the good does not increase for you at all.
It's Bezos's money, and
It's
he's got enough.
Bezos's money.
He's got enough. I think we can all agree on that.
Bezos.
I was going to sing that too. Anyway, thank you for listening to our sales pitch. We can get on with the RYLAcast. Coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to be joined by Matt Stone, who will break down. We'll go series by series on Texas versus Alabama, or we're going to talk about what he does for a living at Turn Ministries and how RYLA impacted that, and vice versa. One of those two. We'll get into that with Matt Stone coming up here in a little bit. But first, Josey. I drew the I like to do, it's not the short straw, it's the long straw. I get to do the big segment.
See what you did there.
Like, it's not a got to, it's a get to, and so I would like to talk a little bit about leadership here on this here podcast about leadership. But more importantly, I want to talk about whether or not you identify as a leader. Do you, like, when you wake up in your everyday life and you stretch your arms and your legs, and you pour yourself a hot cup of Joe, pour yourself a $6.50 pumpkin spice latte. Do you wake up thinking, it's me, Josey, I'm a leader?
Wow, putting me on the spot.
I am.
No, I do not.
And that's, I don't think that's necessarily, wrong. But at the same time, there are places in your life where you are called upon as a leader, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So I found this research done for the Harvard Business Review, our favorite business. It's honestly, it's a top 3 business review. I'm going to go out and I'm willing to say it. The Harvard Business Review is top 3 business review. And so I found this article, and I like that the headline really grabbed me because I was perusing, as I am wont to do. And the headline, "Are you afraid to identify as a leader?"
Oh,
see, get your attention.
I feel like that's
grabbed a hold of me. Are you afraid to identify as a leader? Because I think that what's funny is that we go to camp, and there we're surrounded by people who are all like happy and willing and eager and like chomping at the bit. Chomping? Champing?
Both. Either.
At the bit to identify themselves as a leader. Say, I'm a leader. I want to be a leader. I'm calling for the ball if I need to. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm willing to be that leader for this organization, for this group, for this organization, for whatever. And yet, this article and this study done by, let me give some credit here, Julia Lee Cunningham, Laura Sonde, and Sue Ashford. They put together a study that basically said that, well, first of all, let's agree on some ground rules. Would you agree that it is critical that in order to act like a leader, you have to first see yourself as a leader?
I would agree. Yes.
I think that it is important if you're going to be about it, you got to talk about it, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to see yourself as a leader before you're willing to take those steps towards acting like one, towards being one. I don't think anybody just kind of accidentally happens into being a leader. I think there has to be a conscious decision there. But the study found that there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable identifying as leaders. And there's a couple of reasons here. One is there are people, or it's a lot of it comes from reputational fears. They view the idea of saying, "Hey, it's me, leader person," right, as potentially being a negative for their reputation. The biggest things that they found in doing this study is that people are afraid of identifying themselves as a leader because they don't want to seem domineering, right? They don't want to seem like, oh, that's Josey, he's the leader, he thinks he's so important and so like he can boss everybody around, right?
Right.
There's also the idea that there's people who you don't want to feel like. Another common concern is that acting as a leader results in you being singled out and getting too much attention for being different. It's the idea of being in the pack is a lot easier because you're one of many, as opposed to stepping out in front, stepping out of your comfort zone, so to speak. Even if the attention is positive, people don't want to do this. They were doing a study, and one participant, I'll quote here. One participant explained, quote, "I don't want to be looked up to or idolized. I'm comfortable leading, but at the same time, I want to be on the same level as everyone else," end quote. And I think that's interesting because as somebody who does have some leadership roles in my workplace, I sometimes struggle to find that balance between being part of the team and also being the captain of the team, so to speak, and not wanting to be idolized. Like, I can certainly relate to that. I don't think I am afraid to identify as a leader, but at the same time, I can certainly relate to that. They worry that if they become leaders, they have to sacrifice their sense of belonging within the group, which I think is interesting.
That is interesting.
The other one is something we've talked about a lot here, which is whether or not they see themselves as qualified, participants were afraid that others would view them as unqualified. That they'd say, who died and made Josey king? You know what I mean? The answer is Queen Elizabeth II. But who, like why is this person? Like in the study, they quoted another participant. "I know people often associate men with leadership roles, so that makes me somewhat uncomfortable. I worry that if I try to pursue leadership in my field, people will not take me seriously." So I also wonder if there are certain demographic elements to that leaders of color or women leaders or groups that are otherwise kind of considered to be like, basically not white dudes, essentially. Right. I wonder if that is a bigger fear for them of, you have to go out there and you feel like, oh, people aren't going to take me seriously. Go ahead.
Yeah, so no, that's interesting, and that's tough too, because it feels like, those labels as well. Whether it's a woman leader, oh, she's just bossy. Well,
yeah,
no, that's assertive, yeah, or or whatever reason.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I read that, domineering, my first thought was, because I've got, there's women in leadership. Obviously, we're at Camp RYLA. I'm fairly certain RYLA is majority women, but so it's a lot of female leaders, but also. I also know that in talking with, people I work with and friends and stuff like that who are in leadership roles, they are super conscious. A lot of them are super conscious about not coming off as bossy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I got to be honest, I almost never think of that. I'm just going to do my thing, which, there's a privilege in and of itself in that, but I find that to be particularly interesting. When I saw that word domineering, I thought that was interesting. And to be sure, like, these fears, I think, are based on very real experiences, especially for like underrepresented groups, oh, you're going to be different. You're going to be singled out. People are going to think you're unqualified. People are going to think you're bossy. Now, here's what I think is interesting, because so that's why people are afraid to identify as a leader. This study, though, did find 3 particular things that are going to, or strategies that can help managers, to reduce the impact of those fears, right? The potency of those fears. One of them is to present leadership as not as risky, simply to quell those fears. Like, it's not risky. Don't worry. I thought this was interesting. So in one study, they found that participants who listened to a podcast in which we framed leadership as risky were less likely to identify or act as leaders than those who listened to a podcast that described leadership as low risk.
Did you write this article, Greg?
I promise you I didn't. But I'm here to tell you that you and I are playing with live ammo here. Okay?
Okay.
So that's one thing. They can help managers, by presenting leadership as less risky or lower stakes. Like, just say basically, hey, if, for example, if at work you get asked to be the leader of a team, just going to that person and saying, hey, you know what, by the way, like, just this, leader, mistakes are expected, and this isn't going to be some sort of black mark on your record if this goes sideways, right? I
Mhm.
think that can quell those fears and allow people to identify as a leader. Another one is, I think, and this is interesting, they can take steps to explicitly address the reputational concerns, right? To explicitly go out there and challenge those negative stereotypes and just say, hey, you know what? It's understandable that you don't want to be to have an identity that's stereotypically seen as domineering, but I think that's the role of existing leaders to go to those people that you want to step up and to say, hey, listen, it's not, those fears, you don't need to worry about them, and let's talk through these fears in that way. So I thought found that to be interesting, and to really make it clear through words and actions that leadership is a skill that anyone can develop rather than an innate ability, right? So that kind of gets to the
Right.
idea of like, oh, I'm unqualified. I think there's people who are like, oh, well, I can't be a leader because I'm not a leader. I wasn't born to be a leader. I think there are certain traits that you can have that are innate, that are helpful towards being an effective leader. But I also agree with the idea that anybody can be a leader. And it's a skill that you can develop. It's a muscle you can work out, as opposed to just something you're either born to be a leader or you're not. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And like I said, the headline of "Are you afraid to identify as a leader?" Grabbed my attention. That's good headline writing, said the person who was a regional champion in UIL headline writing back in 2004.
Well, congratulations. I'm sorry I haven't congratulated you before
Thank
now.
you very much. Thank you for that.
But yeah, on the article that you wrote and then presented for this podcast, no, no, I'll
You're
jokes
accusing
aside.
me of being different,
Right.
not
No,
domineering.
I think a lot of things in that article are fascinating, most of which, like, and I'm going to talk about myself for a minute. I don't want to talk about all humans,
All right,
but
everybody clear out. Let Josey talk about himself. I'm kidding.
I can be kind of dumb. So like the way the human body's dumb, right? You're framing it like just listening to a podcast that frames something in one way versus another.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the power of like the unconscious things that occur every day. And I don't want to,
And you're right. And we're certainly not talking up the RYLACast, though. Go rate and subscribe. But I think what you're driving at is a great point, which is it doesn't take much to calm people's fears.
Mm-hmm.
That if you are, and if you're in a position of leadership right now and you would like for somebody else to get involved in it, you think they'd be a good fit. It does not take a whole lot for you to go to that person and to talk through their fears and get them more comfortable with the idea of being a leader. Because I do think that that's important, and because the best thing that you can do, and I know we said this a lot on the podcast before, the best thing you can do as a leader is to empower others to take those leadership roles. And so finding ways to overcome those fears of being a leader, I think is important. So anyway, that's all I had. I told you before we started, I had a big segment.
That is a fantastic segment.
I saw, like I said, if you write a good headline, I will notice it, especially if it's on one of my top 3 business reviews, like the Harvard Business Reviews. Okay, so that's the big segment. Let's get to the real part, the real meat of the show, and that's the bread of the podcast sandwich. Let's get to the turkey and cheese of the sandwich, or maybe I don't know. What's the last sandwich you had?
Actually,
really delaying the Matt Stone interview.
Well, I guess is a burger a sandwich?
A burger is a sandwich. It's meat between bread. Yes.
Okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
We don't have time for that. we have to get to Matt Stone. Here's our conversation with Matt Stone here on the RYLAcast. Oh, Josey.
Oh, Greg.
This is the portion of the podcast where we bring in a big name guest, and I don't want to talk about any of our past guests, but I will just say this definitely is a big name guest. We are.
Really?
Oh yeah. Do you know who's? Did you not get the email I sent?
No.
Okay.
There was an email?
Well, here we go, buddy. We are pleased to be joined on the RYLACast by Matt Stone.
Hey,
All right.
how's it going? It's me, Matt Stone.
What a great way to introduce yourself is just say, "Hey, it's me. Hey, it's me. My name."
I do that with all my friends. I say, "Hey, do you know me from like we used to live together in college?" And they're like, "Yeah, dude."
That's awesome.
I'm gonna start doing that with like my brothers and be
Yeah,
like,
oh, yeah.
"Hey, you remember me? Like we grew up together, like same mom. Thanksgiving." Where are you coming to us from, Matt?
I am sitting in my fiance's house in Austin, Texas.
Okay. So we've brought you on for a number of reasons. We've wanted to confront you for a while, and so this is a live confrontation on tape.
About time.
We will the conversation we usually start these conversations. I'm interested in your RYLA story, how you became involved in the program, how you got here. Basically, how'd you get on this podcast?
Wow. How does anybody get anywhere? Really, that's the questions that will puzzle us for ages. I guess it started when I went to RYLA in 2011. I was the third alternate selected from my school, and so my school typically sends 3 people, so I was number 6 on the depth chart. And as things happen, people get sick, people make plans, and a week before RYLA begins, I actually get a call that says, "Hey, do you still want to do that camp called RYLA?" And I was like, "I guess I don't have better plans." So I showed up to RYLA and immediately felt different. I mean, I've been going to camps my whole life. I grew up in a household where we did, VBSs and, summer camps all the time. So like I was familiar with and in love with camps. And so I got there, but very quickly realized it was all, I don't know. It was all different than I had ever expected. I should have known something when it was a Rotarian taking me to the camp, and I wasn't being like dropped off by my parents or anything. But yeah, getting pulled out of the car was quite the experience and really set the tone in an amazing way, because I feel like when people talk about having a RYLA moment or anything, I feel like I had that moment like night one, not necessarily like, oh, like I'm so enlightened, but it was more like, oh wow, like they really want to teach us something at this camp. Like they believe something about us. And it was when Jerry Traylor was speaking, as he used to do on night one. And I very distinctly remember being like, oh wow, like they really see potential in us. And then from then on out, I was bought in. So I came back for the next year as an AC. I came back one more year before going off to college. And which is unique. Usually you go off to college after your AC year, but I had taken a gap year. And so I came back because I was just like, I was so in love with the mission and the method, especially. I think that it is quite I work in camp ministry now. And so I help students put on retreats where people feel included and invited and special. And so I draw from RYLA and every day, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point in the podcast, but I just want to say, like, even now I'm constantly going back to my RYLA experience and like, how is this supposed to work? And so I came back for a third year and took like a 5-year break because of the date shift that happened. I don't know how in depth your listeners are in the RYLA lore, but there was a shift in dates from June to August for a few years, and I couldn't make it at all. And then came back in 2019, was a counselor for the first time, and then came back as a counselor for the second time in 2022 with a little break for there was something that was going around. I don't even remember what it's called anymore, but came back for a counselor year, and then lo and behold, I get an email one day that says, "Hey, you want to be on a podcast?" And I'm like, "Do I ever?"
Yeah. So it's a long, winding journey to get a dumb email from me.
A really cool email, like a trophy almost.
Wow, I'm kind of just going through all my questions here, and I think you hit literally every one. So
nuts.
No, so you were one of the ones that drank the Kool-Aid. You got a sip of the Kool-Aid early and
Yeah.
just locked in.
Oh yeah, took it to the dome. I was chugging right away. It was, yeah, I mean, the energy is infectious, obviously, for anybody that has been. If anybody who hasn't been, literally well, I don't know, are there students that'll hear this, prospective students in the future?
We haven't really thought about who listens to this podcast. I'll be entirely honest with you. So you could just let it rip.
All right, great. So from the moment you get there, you have a bunch of students who are, and I've come to find that this is the exact right group of people to do it. A group of students who are just 1 year older than the campers, screaming and shouting and having a lot of fun, pull you out of the car, make you do some embarrassing sort of dance, and then send you on a golf cart with a bunch of supplies to another group of people that you've never met, where it's so quiet. And so it's just like this whirlwind of like experiences and sounds and people. And yeah, I mean, it was just so unique. And I like to fancy myself as somebody who likes variety. And in the first 5 hours of RYLA, I think that you hit more peaks and valleys in terms of energy than just about any other thing you could possibly do. So, well, maybe not more than the Cowboys, but
Boy,
Bringing it back.
yeah, bringing it back to sports.
So the RYLA arc, if you will, you've kind of hit everything, from camper to AC to staff member to taking a couple years hiatus. We changed the camp dates actually to get you back, Matt. I don't know if people know that. So how would you say your perception of camp has changed, or the program? You say you use this in your everyday life.
absolutely.
How would you say it's changed throughout the different roles you've played at camp?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I keep realizing over and over is the amount of time, preparation, care that goes into each facet. There's so many different meetings throughout the year for this 1 week long camp to make sure that every moment that the camper experiences is the most impactful it possibly can be. And so I'm constantly impressed each year that happens. And so like I find myself coming to camp each year wondering like what's the small change? What's the smallest change I'm going to notice that's not just by chance but it was done on purpose?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting way to put it because you're right. There's the big things, and a lot of the big things kind of stay the same, and when a big thing changes, you kind of notice, but it's those small things that I think often imperceptible, and maybe you don't realize it until after it's over, that suddenly it dawns on you that it was that was different.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so you are the CEO, is this right? Do I have your
that's
title
right.
right? Wow. Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna sit up straighter.
It's like top dog.
I'm gonna straighten up my tie. Of Turn Ministries, you launch campus retreat ministries, across college campuses, and you mentioned in your lead up talking about how you grew up going to VBS, you grew up going, you were a camp guy. I'm interested in kind of the chicken and egg situation with RYLA and what you do now. Did RYLA what you do now is obviously kind of tied to what similar to what RYLA does and things like that. Did you have an idea of that before you came to RYLA? Did RYLA help to spark that? Give me kind of the breakdown of the timeline between your experience at RYLA and what you do now.
Yeah. Well, as far as the chicken and the egg goes, I think the egg had to have started, I don't know, maybe it was when I was born and made it an extrovert by chance, or just even the history of going to lots of camps growing up. I find the retreat / camp environment to be a place that I find that I really enjoy. I feel like I shine with like meeting people, and we're all brand new to the situation, and just like, I don't know, I like to make people feel welcome. I like, I get nervous when I don't know a lot of people, and so like it makes it easy that we're all on the same footing, and so like I really loved all sorts of camp situations growing up, and just like those shared experiences that you go through where there's no outside distractions. And so RYLA was like the culmination of like, now the egg is fully grown as much as an egg can be. But what really made the work that I do now come to be was I had gone to a similar So I helped students start retreats, and I had gone to one of those retreats as a freshman in college. So as I was coming into the University of Texas, go Longhorns, we want Bama again. As I was coming into UT, I went to this retreat called Ignite Texas, and that was it was a retreat. It was similar to Ignite in that it was a experience for a lot of people who were coming into the same life stage and have a lot of potential and wanting to share something that's going to change their lives. But what made me keep coming back to RYLA, wanting to come and use all the tools that I've been picking up for years and years and years and keep refining at RYLA, was seeing the way that this other retreat, Ignite Texas, grew so slowly. And not in terms of number, but just like the progression of like ideas and like the solidification of things that were really good took a long time. And so I started immediately going back to like, what's something that I know that's incredibly high quality, that's something similar? And of course, that the answer was RYLA. And so that was like the fertilization of the egg to give me a baby chick, which finally did hatch in May of 2018 when I graduated from University of Texas. Go Longhorns! We want Bama. So that's kind of the chicken and the egg deal there. I found that that there's no better model for how a retreat should run in terms of the camper experience than RYLA.
So, one of the questions we're fond of asking is how you use RYLA every day, kind of in what you do. But I'm also interested, and I do want to ask that, but I'm also interested in kind of the reverse of that, because you're a guy who obviously you are involved in camps and retreats and things like that, and involved with young people, with it and kind of giving them experiences. I'm interested in how you use like your everyday work and how much that translates to what you're able to give back to the program and give back specifically when you're a counselor at camp. Do you find that overlap, like your professional life kind of influencing, what you're able to bring to the program?
Oh, absolutely. I have found it's really beneficial for my work to be with primarily incoming college freshmen, because when I'm meeting campers at RYLA, they are coming into their senior year, and so a year later they're going to be able to benefit from the services that we provide at Turn Ministries. And so that's been a really helpful thing to just kind of come in and know that, like, hey, like this thing that we have at RYLA, this really cool experience that you have is not a 1 week thing. You can use your tools to give back to your communities, to do, to grow, to help your friends be better leaders, whatever it is that they're taking away. And immediately come into a place where, like, they go from being the big fish in the small pond to being a little fish in a giant pond when they go off to college, for a lot of them. And to be able to say, like, hey, I know that there was something that you really loved, and I can help you find something very similar that's going to help you fit in when you go to college. And so I absolutely, every time I come back to RYLA, I'm really excited to share with, if it's the ACs or the soon to be seniors in high school, all the different ways that they can get connected to people in college, even before they realize that that's what they really want.
All right, so I'm gonna take things in a different direction.
Let's do it. Switch it up.
So you and I spoke at camp, Matt, and I picked up on something in your intro about where you were. Where in the world is Matt Stone?
That's right. We're going to talk Austin real estate.
We're going to talk Austin real estate and Bama.
It's hot.
So you said fiance.
That's right. Yes, so, I do speak a little French.
So how's that going?
Oh my gosh. It's going great. I'm having a lot of fun. I had a crush on this girl for a long time before I asked her out. And then I finally asked her out and she said, maybe in a few months. And then a few months came and she was like, maybe in a few more months. And so long story short, I asked her out, and a year later we went on our first date. And I've been over the moon. I started saving for a ring a month after I had asked her on that first date. So I was sold well before we even started dating. And about 7 months into, was it 7 months? 9 months. 9 months into dating, I proposed, and man, I'm having a great time. I love her a lot. She's the best. Her name is Hannah. For anybody who's out there wanting to know what her name is,
Shout out Hannah. Okay, so I want to back up, and we're capital J journalists on this podcast, and so we need to clarify the timeline here. Are you saying you started saving up for a ring a month after you first asked her out? So this is before the first date?
Oh yeah, well before.
11 months before the first date, I think.
Whoa,
that's the right math.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I put that on wax and got that exactly right. Look, listen. Sometimes you call your shot, and it comes through. So well done to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, I did not want it to take a year before we went on our first date. I thought it was sooner, but it happened the way it happened.
Okay, that's great. Well, congratulations. When's the wedding?
It's in January 27th, 2023.
Okay.
Come on out.
1/27/23.
Right.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, Matt. We are one last thing to do here, and that is we like to give our guests the floor to plug something. Essentially, this is just like open air for you, that you can do whatever you'd like. You can talk about something that you're passionate about. You can just tell a joke. I don't know. You kind of got 90 seconds, 2 minutes to talk about whatever you'd want and what you want people, the vast listening audience of the RYLACast, which again, can't stress enough. We haven't done any research on the demographics. But you can just plug whatever you'd like in this space. So go.
Well, great. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say a little bit more about the work that I'm doing at Turn Ministries and the reason why. So I help get college freshmen connected to churches and ministries in college towns through helping students put on retreats for them. And so the reason I am even in that work is because, like I said, as I attended Ignite Texas, I had a life-changing experience with Jesus Christ, and now want to follow him for all of my days. And so I found so much freedom and joy and peace in that experience. And so wanted to share that if you are in a spot that you are struggling to find peace, or feel like you're trapped, or a sense of hopelessness, or just honestly having a lot of questions or doubts or whatever it may be, man, ask somebody about Jesus. Ask me if you can, because I would love to tell you about him. But man, there is hope that you can have a relationship with the living God of the universe, who made us all in his image and loves us deeply. So that's how I would use my open air time, is to give credit to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
It's turnministries.org, correct?
That's right.
Turnministries.org. You can find a fancy photo of Matt on there along with Taylor and Josh. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this photo of you guys.
You doing it right now?
I'm looking at you right now. Like this is the radio's a theater of the mind. But I would just encourage people to go to turnministries.org and just look at this picture of Matt while you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, while you're perusing.
Well, bring something together. Matt, we certainly appreciate your time. Yeah, dude, appreciate it. I'm sorry about the Longhorns. It was a great game.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, I have a lot of hope for the season after that. Although I'll tell you, I've been burned before.
Yes, you have. I'm not Texas grad, and I can tell you, yes, I've been to the burn ward.
Okay, I have one question. I know we're trying to wrap this up. Matt, is Texas back?
Great question, Josey.
You really had to do it to me. Yes, of course Texas is back. Okay, Texas is back. It's the Cowboys' year. We're gonna take it all the way.
That's Matt Stone. It's turnministries.org. You can't say he's not offering hope to people. Matt, appreciate your time, my friend.
Yeah, thanks Matt. Guys.
And our thanks once again to Matt Stone, coming to us from Austin, Texas, for joining us here on the RYLACast. A good dude, a two-time RYLA cabin counselor, and I like Matt Stone.
And I believe he's a Camp Cup winner. I don't know how we made it the whole interview without. talking about that.
You know, we really do need like a spreadsheet or something, just keeping up. Like if we ever have, like God forbid we ever have Hunter Follett on the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would be the entire interview would just be about the Camp Cup and every place that it's been.
That's true. That is true.
I think you're right though. I think Matt has won a Camp Cup before. Anyway, we appreciate his time as he's doing wedding planning. So, and now let's go to our closer. We're going to the bullpen. We're playing the Timmy Trumpet song as Edwin
Narco.
Diaz is coming in. No, we're playing Narco. Here he comes, our closer. It's Josey Utz.
Well, thank you, Greg. I'm gonna wrap it up. I would be remiss if, as the resident choo-choo expert on this podcast,
you absolutely are. That is undisputed.
I would be remiss not to bring up any choo-choo related news.
I love it.
Okay.
Oh,
so
do you have a Google alert for like choo-choo news?
I do, and this is not my short segment, but I recently attended a choo-choo conference.
I have so many questions. Does everyone walk around in conductor hats? Please say yes.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay. Anyway, that is a different podcast. That'll be for the Patreon podcast.
Yes,
we'll do the choo-choo conference recap.
So, are you aware that there is an impending railroad strike about to occur?
No. And normally this is a weird brag, but normally I'm up on like impending labor disputes.
Okay.
So I hadn't heard about this.
Yeah, we are like, I don't want to peek too far behind the curtain. We are like hours, days in terms of like weeks, months away from a railroad strike that is essentially over some quality of life issues. Because I don't know if you know this, but railroaders historically have worked all the live long day. Sorry, I'm making this sounds like I'm making.
Oh my God. Josey, you're perfect in every way. Oh my God.
Somebody's going to listen to this and be really affected by the railroad strike and take umbrage against the way I'm framing this. But no, as someone who has worked on the railroad, I have never, and I'm saying this somewhat confidently because I've worked with several people at camp and I know how hard people can work, but there's a section of this earth around like basically I haven't met harder working people than railroad workers, and this strike is essentially. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining what it's about,
dude,
but
this is great. I love labor lawyer Josey.
Yeah, if only we had someone who had like I don't know who was a labor lawyer recently as a guest on this podcast.
Well, somebody couldn't be bothered to be on that podcast.
So basically, a strike is looming because an agreement has not been made with the big freight railroads and two of the larger labor unions, which people may think that's not too big of a deal, but a lot of the passenger trains run on freight railroad tracks. So if nobody steps in after this cooling off period, which that's kind of a cool name, right? Like you've had like some labor disputes and there's a federally mandated cooling off period.
I love that we have to treat people like children sometimes.
Right. So I was trying to think of a short segment and, leadership in crisis. It feels like that's kind of just been a halo around the last couple years. Yeah, I just wanted to bring to light that we are close to a labor strike that would affect more people than just the actual workers. And I kind of wanted to frame this as a way of there's a lot going on. As one of my favorite former radio hosts said, there's a lot more going on than I think there is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that sounds that and this is a sticky wicket because we have aimed very, very strongly from the jump to keep this an apolitical conversation. But obviously, when you talk about labor disputes, there's going to be some politics that creep into it. All of that is just to say that in my limited knowledge of American labor disputes, what I have found is that you will find out real quickly who's got leaders that the constituency trusts,
Yeah.
and specifically when you're talking from the labor side, because there's a very small number of people, and obviously I'm just learning there's about to be a strike, but generally speaking, there's a very small number of people who are responsible for a very large constituency, and they have a large challenge ahead of them, for solving these things.
And I think if I can kind of wrap things up tie it with a bow, if you will, it's really, and I like that how you framed it. We do try to be an apolitical podcast, and it really, to me, this stresses the importance of listening as a leader, because with disputes, whether it's arguing over the price of a pumpkin spice latte or work-life balance around your work, the dispute started somewhere. And so as a leader, it's important to really be in tune with the people you're leading. And that's, I think, what separates you from being kind of one of the team and a leader, is if you can hear maybe some of those distresses that are happening and address those early and often, to make sure they don't blow up into something bigger.
Yeah, because again, I'm just now learning about this, but I would bet all the money in my wallet, which is $2. I would bet $2 that this did not crop up overnight.
Right.
So anyway, that's fascinating. Thank you for keeping us up on the. Will you keep us updated on the latest in labor disputes on the rail system?
I will, absolutely.
Okay. Our chief rail correspondent, Josey Utz, reporting from Allen. Right, Alan? Wiley, that's right. I saw you recently, and you told me that you moved, and I was like, man, when did you move? You're like 2 years ago.
Time is crazy.
It is. Time. Let's have a conversation just about time, just the idea of time. But there's no time for that. That is it for this episode of the RYLACast. We do thank you for being a listener and spending a little bit of your day with us. If you would please rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. And here, with an antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLACast, is Josey.
Yeah, go ahead and write a letter, but make sure it's shipped by rail in the next 2 days to listen to this podcast.
Is there a way to specify, I would like this letter delivered by rail?
I don't think so, but I would bet that a lot of your letters are getting delivered by rail.
Gotta be, right?
Gotta be.
Anyway, that's a question for the United States Postal Service. We'll try to solve that before the next episode of the RYLACast. Thanks for your time.